Welcome to this week's podcast episode. I brought on another Heather. Heather Parady, welcome.
Heather's the best name ever.
Yes.
So nice to be with you.
No, I remember when we connected on Facebook, and I was like, yes, another Heather.
Mm-hmm. Did you get Heather Feather wears leather and bad weather and all that?
Oh gosh, no, I didn't. But I remember I thought I was so cool because I was Heather H squared. And in fourth grade, I can't make this up, fourth grade, we had 3 Heather H's in my class.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, crazy. Why I brought you on, first of all, give the listeners a little background. Where are you from and what do you do?
Yeah. So I live in Georgia and I work full time on my online business. I work in production and digital marketing for online business owners. My passion project is my own show too. I love podcasting. I think it's one of the greatest gifts in the world right now. And everybody should have a podcast if you're even slightly interested in it. I think it's awesome. So I work with a lot of podcast hosts and yeah, I just love it. I have 2 beautiful little girls, 6 and 2, and an awesome husband who's very patient with me because I have about another idea every other day that I'm trying to pursue. So that's me.
I know what that's like. And I think part of me has realized that because I'm very creative and it's like chasing the shiny object, but I'm trying to be more focused and chase the one. And when that's, then you go to the next. But how do you balance that creative, inspiring energy with trying to stay focused and, take one thing all the way?
I'll tell you exactly how. And if you are watching this, you're going to see me pick up a very old school, unprofessional notebook. And I call this my idea book. And it's almost kind of like an ADD tendency where I have so much energy and so many thoughts at times. And I know, when you're learning stuff in the digital space, there's always something new and always a new method and everything. But just like you said, unless you stay focused, you're not going to make progress. And I mean, you can even date that back to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, I was just reading this morning, rereading that for like the 7th time, and he talked about sound plans, and you have to have a sound plan. So the way I compensate for that is I have this little book, literally a notebook, and whenever I have a new idea or someone says, hey, you should check this out, or I try to rabbit trail, I stop for a second and I write that down. I write down the idea, I write down the resource or whatever, and I close the book. And once a week, when I'm making my agenda for the week, I open my idea book and I kind of review all of those ideas, all of those resources, all of those things. And then at a later date, it's been a few days and I'm not as excited anymore about it. I can look at it more realistically and say, is this actually a good time for me right now? If it is, I'll move it over to my agenda and make time for it in my week. And if it's not, I'll just keep it in there for maybe a later date.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. How many of the things that you're so stoked about up front that you write down that you come back to and you're like, well, that was just a nice idea?
I'd say 25% of it I use and 75% I throw away.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That makes me feel better. So maybe I'll get myself my own idea book.
Yeah, it's been super helpful. And I think, as someone who's very big picture and all of that, it helps actually physically doing something and writing it down because it kind of helps you feel like, well, I will get to that if it's important. Because I don't know about you, I classify myself as a big picture idea person. And there's so much emotion attached to what we do where it's very easy to get excited and just bounce ship and try something different. And that's not always the best thing.
Yes. Sometimes my mom refers to me as a bouncy ball. I'm all over the place, but I'm like, Mom, I have so many ideas. One thing of mine, actually, my coach helped me with, I started a brand more or less several years ago, 365 boarding, because I wanted to promote the passion of an active lifestyle through boarding sports. And it was one of those things that was like my baby, and I had this idea, but I don't know, I never really carried it out. And it was only more recently that my coach helped me realize maybe that's my passion project. It doesn't have to be a business. It doesn't have to. So I think there's a fine line of passion projects and things that you love to do for hobbies and whatever, but you don't have to make every hobby or interest a business.
That's a really, really profound thought. Yeah, and true.
Yes. All right, let's get to the real reason I brought you on today. When we were talking previously, you shared what I thought was such a powerful story with me about mindset and pushing yourself past your comfort zone and challenging yourself. So if you could take us back a little bit and share your process of training and going through an Ironman.
Yeah. Oh, So I'm a runner. I've always been a runner. I've been running since I was 15, 16 years old. It was a way that I coped with a lot of anxiety that I had when I was younger and still do at times. So running has just been like an outlet, and it's come easy to me. It's easy for me to put on my shoes and just run out the door. In fact, it feels good. Like I love sweating out in the sun and all of that. My husband thinks I'm crazy. So running's simple. I've done multiple half marathons. I run an insane amount every week, and I love it. I was out running last year. I believe it was probably about a year ago around this time. And I was running with a friend, and she mentioned, I'm going to do an Ironman. There's an Ironman coming up in our town, and I'm going to do it. And I immediately said to her, I could never do that. Like I verbally said that. And the moment I said that, I was just kind of shocked that I said something like that, because I'm always the one preaching to people like, you can do anything and it's all about your mindset, and we set limitations and fear and blah, 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 blah. On the show, I'm the one always harping about that. And here I am, a walking contradiction to what I preach, saying I could never do that. So right after I said that, I started asking her more questions about it. And the reason that I said I could never do it is not because of the training or the strain or whatever. It's because I am really afraid of water, or I was really afraid of water at the time. I didn't know how to swim. I've never been a swimmer. In fact, when I was a small child, there's a couple of times I had like these drowning experiences, and I don't know like how accurate it was. I know as a kid, it felt like I almost died, and I may have, I'm not sure. But the point is, I didn't do well in the water. In fact, when we go to the beach, lake, anything, I'm the one who has the sunscreen that's laying out, reading a book while everybody else is splashing in there. I'm like, I'm good. So that's why I didn't think I could do it. So I started asking her more questions about it. And it was during that run, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to sign up for it too. And came home. And again, I mentioned that my husband's patient. So came home and told him that I was going to do an Ironman. And he's like, oh, Heather, what does this involve? And I'm like, I don't know. But I'm the type of person that signs up for things and figures it out later. It is exactly what happened. But yeah, I just started the process about a year ago around this time, where I believe it was March, April, and the Ironman was in September. So I had to, and I would say I've never ridden a grown-up bike. Let's put it that way. When I was a kid, I rode a bike, but I hadn't had a bike since. So that was new too. And the swimming was brand new. So literally I went on this journey where, just within a few months I had to learn how to swim, and then also train for the bike, and then couple that with the run. So I really looked at it as, yes, it was really cool for like a physical opportunity, but I did it for me because I really wanted to figure out the mind-body connection. And I knew that there's been a lot of hurdles in my own business and things that I want to push past in my personal life. And I know, because I preach it all the time and I had to live it, that we kind of have to prove things to ourselves sometimes. We kind of have to intentionally put ourselves in these situations we don't think that we can do it, to show us how powerful our minds actually are.
Heather, I couldn't agree more. And as a fellow runner, I totally understand the runner's high. And I've been a runner since I was a young girl, like elementary school. I'll be like, bye, Mom, I'm going to go for a jog. But maybe for somebody who's not a runner, who can't relate to us, can you explain, what is running for you? Is it like a moving meditation? Is it just a release? What's it like for you?
So we talked earlier about being an idea person and, bouncing all that. I think I have, I'm not big on labels. I don't want to say like, hyperactivity disorder or anything like that. But, somebody who were to say that, I think it'd be easy to pin me for that. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of emotion. I just have a lot in this package right here. Like, this is just a whole bunch of stuff. And so I know it sounds crazy, but literally going out and just pounding on pavement, like it's even different outside for me than even on a treadmill. The physical exertion that it takes, the exhaustion, the actual motion of going through running, I feel like I'm getting out some of my energy and my passion and my heart and my emotion, and I feel cleansed after it. Sometimes it feels like I'm balled up with all this stuff. And a lot of times too, when I get upset or I have a lot of pressure on me, emotional, like getting all of that out. I know it sounds weird, but the physical representation of it actually is an emotional release for me. So, where some people want to sit and talk and all that, I want to go run really hard in the heat and listen to loud music and just get everything out. And I feel like I just spent through a therapy session. And also too, like on a spiritual level, if you are spiritual or not, listen, whoever's listening, I feel like I get downloads from God, the universe, whatever. I feel like in that state of where you can really lay everything out and you can kind of get to the end of yourself exhaustion wise. I feel like that's where I can hear things a lot clearer. And that's where a lot of ideas come from me, a lot of clarification, a lot of peace, knowing everything's okay. Because sometimes I put a lot of pressure on myself. And when I go out and I run and I get all of that out, I just feel like, Heather, you're going to be okay. So
Yeah, it sounds to me like running for you, and maybe we relate with the idea. So it's almost like it's monkey mind, right? We have so much mind chatter and so much going on that is running is a way to quiet that.
yes.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So now walk us through, you're afraid of water. You have all this, childhood trauma of water and swimming. How did you even begin?
Well, I told everybody I was going to do it. So I am the type of person, if you dare me to do anything, I'll probably do it. I have a big problem with that. So if I publicly declare something, if I make a statement, it's going to happen, unless, circumstances outside of my control. So I knew, first of all, I needed to hold myself accountable by just physically announcing to people that this is what I was going to do. From there, I kind of leaned into my strength at first, and I really decided that I was going to buckle down on the run and make sure that that was something that was just not hard for me at all. So I committed to running a half marathon every week to just get my body in a point where I knew like running was just like breathing, which it had been up to that point, but I'd never ran that much. So every weekend I got up in the morning and I ran a half marathon, no matter where I was at, no matter what state I was in or whatever. So I did that. And then, to the water, I went to a swimming pool and tested to see how far I could swim without stopping. And I think it was around 40 feet. Okay. And that was like nasty swim, like the ugly swim where people are like, is she okay? So I tested that out and I could get that far, and it was messy. So I did a lot of YouTube videos. A lot of people said, get a trainer, get a coach and all that. And I'm all for trainers and coach, but I'm also knew that I had a lot of mental work that I could work through myself. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos, learned about breathing. I touched base with a friend of mine who said the most beautiful thing to me. And he does a lot. He's an inner work coach. He deals with a lot of emotions and stuff. And he told me that being in water was a natural state, and that I was returning back to water because, we were in the womb and we were in water, and this was this natural state for us as humans to be there. And he gave me this mantra to say, you belong here. You belong here. And so I would get in the water, and while I was like feeling that anxiety and all that, and, my background is counseling. So I've been trained on, all of the anxiety techniques, everything, deep breathing, visualization, all of that. So it was like I was counseling myself, bringing all of that in and just repeating that mantra. I belong here. I belong here. I belong here. I knew it wasn't a physical barrier I was facing. I knew it was a mental one. I knew it was, because I was panicking. I was freaking out. I was having these scenarios in my head. And so much of swimming is breathing and being calm. And they put yourself in a situation where you're deathly afraid. It's like getting in a pile of snakes and saying, breathe, be calm.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just started in that swimming pool until finally I could swim back and forth with that. And then I went over to my husband's in the military, and went over to the military base, and there was an Olympic sized pool there. First time I could just swim across once, worked, swim across twice. And I just slowly worked up to it. I also used a lot of visualization. I'm very spiritual, weird, woo-woo. So here we go. Used a lot of visualization. So I pictured different people that I trusted and believed in at the end of the swimming pool, and just kind of saw them there. It was just swimming to them and remaining really calm. And I would hear like people say like, okay, Heather, you got this, you got this. And it was a lot of mental work. I was talking to myself the entire time. But yeah, so that's how I got through it. And within, over the summer, taught myself how to swim and ended up swimming. It was a Ironman 70. So swam a little bit over a mile in September in a alligator infested Georgia river. Yeah. So there's that
Um,
side note. Yeah. So we didn't.
and for those, I just realized for somebody who doesn't know what an Ironman is, how long is the swim, bike, and run?
Yeah. So this is a half Ironman. So we
Okay.
do 70 miles and it's a little over 1 mile swim. It's a 58-mile bike ride followed by a half marathon run.
Dang. That's amazing.
And it was about 100 and something degrees that day. Um, yeah. And what was really interesting is, running is my strength. Like I said, I was running half every weekend. But I physically just exhausted my body towards the end where running, I was literally like a crawl. Like it was the
Yeah.
hardest thing I've ever done in my life. My husband literally came over to me and was like walking beside me, like talking to me because I was like delusional. I couldn't even, it was really, really hard. I, I should have eaten more than I did. I didn't eat anything. I learned a lot of little small treats. But it was interesting because the one thing that I thought I was gonna, I told you before, it was really hard swimming, but I didn't really mentally prepare myself for the rest of it either.
But I think the biggest takeaway is you had so much determination that you were no longer going to let fear keep you out of the water, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you did the work, the mindset, the physical, all the training to complete a half Ironman. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from that? Did you feel like you couldn't conquer anything going forward? What did you walk away feeling?
I realized how important that was to do it for me.
Mm.
You know, I needed to do that for me. And even if there would have been no one there and, you and I weren't having this conversation and it ever would have been brought up again, I realized how important it was for me to experience that, to understand how powerful my own intention and my mind is. And not that I can do anything, but it's not that now I'm still not afraid of things. Like there are a couple other things that I'm thinking about trying out for and doing that I'm scared to do as well. But now I have like a basis to kind of compare it to. Like, well, Heather, you got in the freaking, Savannah River and swam a mile. Like you can do this. So it's not that I still don't face fear, but now having that reference point is so helpful. And two, I really wanted, I know my girls are too little right now, but it's so important for me to show them um, what this looks like growing up, because I want them to have a reference point of the things that they're afraid of and like them to live a life where they see their mom doing crazy things and their mom pushing herself. And I just think being a strong woman and representing that as much as I can is so important because I'm telling you, having two little girls to look at you, I mean, is the most humbling thing in the world and scary. So I thought about them a lot too.
Well, and I want to ask you, the days when you didn't feel like training, the days when your body hurt
Every
and
day.
ached. Yeah. So the reason I ask you this is because I'm similar to you, but not to that extreme. I ran a half marathon years ago. I created mental blocks that running was painful. I didn't train well. And now I'm pushing myself again, like you, but it's for me. I'm running a full marathon. I'm 6 weeks out now.
Awesome.
And there are days, yeah, that I don't want to run. And those are the days that I push through. And like the body aches, but I don't like, how did you get past the thoughts of, I don't want to, it hurts, I'm sore? How'd you push past?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I kind of go on the opposite extreme where I'm so hard on myself sometimes that I have to be okay with resting. Like I remember one time, I really was just in a lot of pain and I was just emotionally not there. And I had to talk to myself. It's like, Heather, it's okay to just not train today. It's okay to skip it. It's okay to listen to your body when you know that it needs some rest. But on the flip side of that, if that's all, happening on a continual basis, you're not going to have the stamina. You're not going to be able to make it. Um, I have been working really, really hard to, down to every detail of my life, making sure that there's zero negativity. There is zero people in my life that allow voices in that give any way to excuse or complacency, almost to a point, and not to be like a jerk where it's like, well, you're this or you're that, but also to just being very intentional that the people I surround myself with and the voices that I listen to are adding life to me and spurring me towards my greater self. So when I'm training, I listen to a lot of kind of more meditative stuff. I listen to podcasts. I'm constantly pouring into my mind and my soul, like who I want to become. I mean, constantly from the moment I wake up, pretty much to the time I go to bed, very, very guarded with that. I think that's super important because literally the words that you hear, the atmosphere that you're in, the energy that's around you seeps into you, and it dictates who you become. I believe that with all of my heart. And then to that accountability piece I mentioned earlier of sharing my journey, I got on Facebook and I said I'm afraid of water and I'm going to swim. And I posted pictures of it. I posted pictures of my feet, and I admitted, I'm like, I could only swim this far right now. Like, I was very, very open with the journey, hopefully to encourage like my audience who are listening. And on Fidget Friday on our episodes, I would document on there what was going on, how I was doing, and everything, to be authentic and transparent, because nobody likes perfect. Like, people want to know your struggle. But then also too is this sense of accountability towards me that, you know, I'm showing up for these people and I'm going to follow through with what I said, because I'm not only doing this for me, I'm doing this for all the people who think they can't as well in their lives.
That's powerful. I'm curious, I know you used the phrase or mantra, you belong here, but did you have any others like I am statements or any other mental triggers to keep pushing?
I think that was my only consistent one. Now, I am a mantra, like I love mantras in general, so I use them constantly throughout my life. But it's not anything that was specific outside of that one. That was the main one, um, that I used.
That's awesome. I love your story and thank you for sharing. I'd kind of like to wrap this up with some rapid fire questions for
Sure.
you. What is a quote or motto that you live by?
Ooh. I'll just say the one that I wrap the show and the business around is step up, use your voice, and make an impact in the world. I think there are too many people with a message inside of them and they're not sharing it and they're not giving it, but it's not for them, it's for other people. And the world would be completely different, I think, if we all stepped up and used our voices.
100% agree. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Sure. I think I'm in 3 right now. I'm reading A Course in Miracles right now. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going through that one for the first time. It's really, really good. I'm rereading Think and Grow Rich. I think I've read that 7 times now. It's just I love that book. And then I'm also in The Judgment Detox, Gabrielle Bernstein.
Yeah. So how are you able to balance? Because for me, I tried to do that, but now I have to go all in, finish a book, and go to the next. So how do you take snippets of each?
Yeah, it's, I'm a very ordered person. Like, I think I have like spreadsheets for everything and all that. So it's very uncharacteristic of me to be like that. I just have these weird, like, some days I'm just feeling stuff and other days I'm not. Like, I don't know why, but just sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, this is the judgment detox kind of day. And other days I'm like, no, I want to read, more about mindset and all that. Um, I've really been working in the morning of, it's hard as someone, we talked about, your racing thoughts and all of your ambition and all of that. I really believe in spirituality and I really believe in intention, but it's also very hard for me to do that because my character is to just go, go, go and like accomplish. And I want to wake up in the day and like, let's drink a green smoothie, knock out a few miles and get to work. It's hard for me to like pause and like actually tune in and listen. And although I believe in it, it's also very hard for me to practice. So in the morning, I've been trying to slow down and really tune in and be like, okay, what is your intuition saying? Where are you at right now? Like, let's just honor that. And if that means picking up another book that you're not reading right now, if that means switching things up a little bit, that's okay. And that's hard for me sometimes.
I love that you're always pushing yourself and challenging and questioning your ways. My final question for you would be, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, wow. Um, don't worry about boys. This is the first thing that comes to my mind. Don't worry about relationships. I spent so much time agonizing over my relationships with other people without really developing my relationship with myself and figuring out who I was. And, now as a mother and a wife, I feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm actually exploring that and figuring that out. And, everything has its own time and season. So I'm not sure it was technically out of order, but I think initially my first thought is if I could go back to 20-year-old Heather, early 20s, mid 20s, whatever, and just say like, hey girl, like, don't even worry about all this right now. Like, find yourself, explore, play, tune in, dig in deep, find out who you are, and stop putting so much social pressure on yourself to reach certain milestones that you feel like you're supposed to reach to please other people who you don't even really like.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think yeah, that's powerful right there, is to let go of others' expectations and tune into you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story.
It was awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. Heather.